I'm Teisha Bader with Shalom TV's news update for Wednesday, October the 2nd, 2013. We begin with reaction to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's speech yesterday at the United Nations General Assembly. An editorial in the New York Times criticized the Prime Minister as trying to, quote, sabotage the best chance to restore relations between the West and Iran. While the editorial states that Netanyahu has legitimate reason to be wary of any Iranian overtures, as does the U.S., it also said it could be disastrous if Mr. Netanyahu and his supporters in Congress were so blinded by distrust of Iran that they exaggerate the threat, block President Obama from taking advantage of new diplomatic openings, and sabotage the best chance to establish a new relationship since the 1979 Iranian Revolution sent American-Iranian relations into the deep freeze. At the UN yesterday, Prime Minister Netanyahu warned the international community that Iranian President Hassan Rouhani was a wolf in sheep's clothing and urged the world not to ease up on sanctions against Iran until it totally dismantles its nuclear program. The Prime Minister also added that if Israel has to ultimately stand alone against Iran, it will. The Anti-Defamation League praised Netanyahu's speech at the UN. ADL National Director Abe Foxman said Prime Minister Netanyahu has disappointed his critics who warned him not to be negative or shrill. He did not reject diplomacy, but in an articulate, reasonable, rational, and emotional way, made clear why the international community cannot afford to be complacent about Iran's ongoing nuclear weapons program. B'nai B'rith International praised the Prime Minister's call for vigilance in protecting the world from Iran's nuclear ambitions. The organization said in a statement today that they would very much like to see the issue of Iran's nuclear program resolved in a way that puts Iran out of the nuclear weapons business, saying at the same time we can't dismiss 20 years of deception by Iran, noting that its centrifuges continue to spin. And the American Jewish Committee also praised the speech. AJC Executive Director David Harris said the Prime Minister delivered a compelling clarion call for the entire world about Iran. Harris said the stakes are very high with no room for wishful or illusory thinking about Iran's intentions. No one seeks confrontation for confrontation's sake, he said, but until the Iranian regime comes clean on its nuclear program and fully cooperates with the international community, maximum pressure is absolutely necessary. Harris added history's lessons on this score could not be clearer. And Israel's Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon today acknowledged that there were differences between Israel and the U.S. with regard to Iran and expressed concern over attempts to engage in diplomacy with Iran. He said some in the West sadly are tempted to give in to wishful thinking on Iran, and said it was Netanyahu's duty to display an accurate picture. Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Jay Carney said that Israel's concern was completely understandable. He said yesterday after Netanyahu's speech that, as the president has said, we understand and it is entirely justifiable that Israel is skeptical about Iran and Iran's intentions. After all, Carney said this is a country whose leadership until recently was pledging to annihilate Israel. So their security concerns are understandable. Their skepticism is understandable. And Israel Radio reported that UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon told Netanyahu in their meeting following the Prime Minister's address yesterday that Iran has opened a narrow window of opportunity to prove its nuclear program is operating for peaceful purposes. Meanwhile, members of the UN General Assembly yesterday elected Iran as rapporteur for the committee responsible for disarmament and international security, a body that deals with all matters regarding disarmament, including nuclear weapons. The American Jewish Committee has already responded to the election, saying that they were appalled. AJC Executive Director David Harris said the country that today is the #1 threat to global security should be the last one to lead UN initiatives on disarmament, adding that Iran's quest for nuclear weapons capability, its longstanding support for international terrorist groups, its interference in Syria and other Middle East countries, among other military adventures, should have automatically disqualified Iran from such an influential position in the world body. And staying with the United Nations, Haaretz reports that Israel asked the UN to recognize Yom Kippur as an official UN holiday. Israel's Deputy Foreign Minister Ze'ev Elkin and Israel's ambassador to the UN, Ron Prosor, met yesterday with UN Deputy Secretary General Jan Eliasson to request international recognition for Yom Kippur, which would enable UN employees to take a day off to observe the holiday without having to give up a vacation day. There are 10 such recognized UN holidays, including the Muslim observances of Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha, and the birth of the Prophet Muhammad, along with Christmas Day, Palm Sunday, Easter, and the Islamic New Year. The Anti-Defamation League announced yesterday that an organization that was once the country's largest neo-Nazi group, the National Alliance, is now in great decline. Co-director of the ADL Center on Extremism, Marilyn Mayo, said the near-total collapse of the National Alliance indicates a significant change in the neo-Nazi movement in the U.S. She said the movement is not nearly as active, the groups do not have a substantial following, and are not attracting many new members. Their leadership has been in decline, and so is the movement as a whole. 15 years ago, the ADL designated the National Alliance as the most dangerous organized hate group in America. Now Mayo says it is a shell of its former self. The ADL notes problems in leadership and apparent financial mismanagement as part of the organization's collapse, as well as their inability to recruit new members and few remaining supporters. More than 25 countries across Europe celebrated Jewish culture over the weekend, opening the doors of museums, synagogues, and Jewish quarters to the public. The European Day of Jewish Culture marked this year's theme of Jewish heritage and nature, with music, lectures, photography, literature, as well as delicacies. The project was originally launched in 1996 in France by B'nai B'rith Hirschler, and in 1999, it was extended to Germany, Switzerland, Italy, and Spain. The following year, 11 new countries joined, and in 2004, the European Association for the Preservation and Promotion of Jewish Culture and Heritage, or AEPJ, was created in order to coordinate the project on a European level. AEPJ is formed by the British B'nai B'rith Europe, the Spanish Red de Juderías de España, Caminos de Sfarad, and since last year, the European Council of Jewish Communities. Last year's events boasted close to 170,000 visitors across Europe. The George Washington University's Graduate School of Education and Human Development and Columbian College of Arts and Sciences received a $1.47 million grant from the Jim Joseph Foundation in order to fund a new program which combines experiential education and Jewish cultural arts. The program is the only one of its kind in the country. It offers an interdisciplinary curriculum of coursework from the graduate school's museum education program and the Columbian College's program in Judaic Studies to provide a Master of Arts in Experiential Education and Jewish Cultural Arts. Dean of the GW Graduate School, Michael Feuer, said, "With this new program, we can be a key agent of change in the Jewish cultural community." And finally, tonight on Shalom TV, we'll be broadcasting a meeting of Americans for a Safe Israel at 8 p.m., an interview with Deputy Speaker of Israel's Knesset Moshe Feiglin at 8:30 on why he is against a Palestinian state, and then L'chaim at 9 o'clock tonight, where Mark Golub will be discussing the West Bank city of Ariel, together with widow of Ariel's founding mayor Ron Nachman, Dorit Nachman, and Ariel's international representative and executive director of the Ariel Development Fund, Avi Zimmerman. That's tonight on Shalom TV and ShalomTV.com. And that's Shalom TV's news update for Wednesday, October the 2nd, 2013. I'm Teisha Bader.